When it comes to emotional attachment, it's important to recognize that men and women often process these feelings differently. It's not a matter of one being more emotional or invested than the other. It's simply that society, upbringing, and biology often shape how men connect and how they express longing. While women might naturally lean toward talking things through, sharing feelings, or even noticing the absence of someone quickly, many men take a different path. They may not immediately identify what they're feeling, let alone express it openly. You see, for many men, there's this tendency to compartmentalize emotions. When they're focused on their careers, hobbies, or daily routines, emotions can get pushed to the side. Not ignored entirely, but filed away for later. It's not because they don't care or that the connection didn't matter. It's because they've been conditioned to prioritize logic and productivity over introspection. But here's the thing, no matter how disciplined or logical a man tries to be, emotions have a way of catching up with you. Eventually, the mind quiets, and that's when the heart starts talking. At first, it might come as a subtle reminder, a favorite song playing on the radio, the sight of a familiar restaurant, or even a phrase someone says that echoes words they've heard before. At that moment, they may brush it off, thinking it's no big deal. But those memories have a way of building up. Little by little, the absence becomes more noticeable, more real. That's when they start to miss you. Not necessarily because they plan to, but because their heart left them no choice. Now, here's an interesting twist. Because men often take longer to process these emotions, they might not even realize what's happening right away. They'll convince themselves they're just distracted, tired, or stressed. But then comes that moment. The moment when they stop mid-sentence or stare off in the middle of a task and think, wait, something feels off. What's missing here? That's when it hits them. And when it does, it can hit hard. This delayed realization isn't a flaw. It's just part of how some men navigate the emotional landscape. And trust me, when they do finally miss you, it's not a fleeting thought. It's a deep, meaningful acknowledgement of your presence in their life, one that lingers and speaks louder than they might even be willing to admit. That's why patience and understanding are so important. It's easy to think that if someone doesn't show they miss you right away, it means they don't care. But often, it's quite the opposite. They're processing those emotions in their own way, in their own time, and just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening beneath the surface. So what does this mean for you? It means trusting the connection you built. It means not rushing to seek immediate validation because lasting emotions take time to develop and reveal themselves. When a man starts to miss you, it's usually because there was something real, something meaningful that left an impression on him. And that kind of connection isn't erased just because you're not physically present. People often say that love and longing don't follow a clock, and that couldn't be more true. The timeline for missing someone varies, but one thing is universal. When the feeling finally catches up with a man, it's unmistakable. And when he reaches that point, it's not just a passing thought, it's a realization of your impact, your value, and the space you occupy in his heart. And that's a powerful thing. Never forget, what's real always makes its presence known, even in its absence. Time and distance have a way of shifting perspectives. When you're constantly around someone, it's easy to take things for granted. Their laugh, the way they think, the little quirks that make them unique. But when that presence is gone, suddenly there's this space that can't be filled by just anyone. And that's where missing someone really starts. It's like realizing that a melody you've been humming is incomplete without that one key note. For men, time and distance often play a critical role in awakening those emotions. When life is moving fast, filled with meetings, deadlines, and everyday distractions, it's easy to stay on autopilot. In the moment, you might not even notice the absence of someone meaningful because your mind is too preoccupied. But time has a funny way of slowing everything down eventually. It forces reflection. It's in those quieter moments when the noise fades and routine starts feeling empty that the realization sets in. Distance works hand in hand with time. Being apart creates room for those thoughts and feelings to surface. Suddenly, there's no immediate text, no impromptu lunch date, no casual conversation to fall back on. There's only the memory of what used to be there. At first, a man might convince himself that everything's fine, that the space is manageable, or even necessary. But as days or weeks pass, the absence becomes louder. That's when he starts noticing the void, the empty space where your presence used to be. What makes this process so profound is that distance often amplifies the good memories. Sure, there may have been disagreements or frustrations, but those fade in comparison to the warmth and joy someone brought into your life. It's human nature to romanticize what's missing, to hold on to the best parts and let the rest fall away. And in that process, a man starts to realize just how much value you added to his life. But here's the twist. Distance doesn't just make someone miss your presence. It makes them see you more clearly. When you're apart, there's no room for ego, pride, or petty disagreements. All that's left is the truth, how you made them feel, what you meant to them, and the impact you had on their life. And that's when the missing becomes undeniable. It stops being about physical separation and becomes about an emotional longing that runs deeper than they might have expected. There's also something powerful about anticipation. Time and distance build it up like a wave that's waiting to crash. As the days stretch on, the desire to reconnect grows stronger. It's not just about seeing you again. It's about making up for lost time, about proving that the connection you shared was real and worth fighting for. That's a transformative realization because it often pushes a man to step up, to be more intentional, and to show that he's willing to close the distance. Not just physically, but emotionally too. Now, I want to be clear, time and distance don't guarantee that someone will miss you. But when there's a genuine connection, they almost always reveal the truth. If someone truly cares, if you left a meaningful impression, then time apart will only make those feelings stronger. And if they don't feel that pull, then maybe they were never meant to occupy that space in your life. And that's okay because the right person will. It's easy to get caught up in wondering how long it will take for someone to miss you or whether they will at all. But here's the thing, you can't control that. What you can control is the way you show up in someone's life and the authenticity of the connection you build. When that foundation is solid, time and distance become tests, not obstacles. And when someone passes that test, when they reach out after time apart, when they admit that they've missed you, that's when you know it was real. Time and distance are powerful forces. They reveal the truth, strip away the distractions, and show us what really matters. And when a man reaches that point, when he realizes he misses you, it's not just a passing thought. It's a call to action, a reminder of what's worth holding on to. And that's when you'll know the impact you had. Emotional connection is everything. It's the foundation that determines whether someone remembers you or forgets you the moment you walk out the door. It's not just about attraction, shared experiences, or surface level conversations. It's about how deeply you resonate with someone on a human level. When you've created that kind of connection, it doesn't fade easily. It lingers, grows stronger, and becomes undeniable, even when you're not physically there. For men, emotional connection can be a slow burn. Society often teaches men to focus on external achievements rather than introspective connections, which makes it harder for some to tap into their feelings right away. But when a man does connect with you on that level, when he trusts you, feels understood by you, and shares moments with you that go beyond the ordinary, that connection becomes a permanent imprint on his heart. You know how people say you never forget how someone makes you feel? That couldn't be more accurate. It's the laughter shared during a simple walk, the quiet moments when no words are needed, and the way you support each other through life's challenges that create emotional ties. These are the memories that echo in a man's mind long after you're gone. They surface in the most unexpected moments. A certain scent, a familiar phrase, or a song that instantly takes him back to you. What makes emotional connection so powerful is its ability to cut through the noise. Men can have busy lives filled with meetings, deadlines, and countless distractions, but no matter how full their schedule gets, true emotional connections are never forgotten. They're like seeds planted deep within that grow over time, often unnoticed until the roots run deep enough to be undeniable. And when a man reaches that point of realization, it's no longer just about remembering you, it's about needing you. Not because of convenience or routine, but because your presence has become essential to his emotional well-being. Here's the beauty of emotional connection. It's not about perfection. It's not about being flawless or never having disagreements. It's about authenticity. It's about showing up as your true self and allowing someone else to do the same. When that happens, walls come down and a bond forms that's stronger than any surface level attraction. And when a man experiences that, it stays with him. It becomes part of his story. Sometimes men don't even realize the depth of these connections until life forces them to. Maybe it's a tough day when no one else seems to understand, or maybe it's a quiet night when they're left alone with their thoughts. In those moments, the mind wanders back to the people who made them feel seen, valued, and whole. That's when the longing sets in. And it's not just about missing the fun times, it's about missing the sense of home that emotional connection provides. But here's the catch. You can't force an emotional connection. It has to be genuine. You can't demand that someone misses you or expect immediate validation. All you can do is be authentic, show up fully, and create moments that matter. When you do that, you leave an impression that time and distance can't erase. And when a man does start to miss you because of that connection, it's not a fleeting thought. It's a deep, soulful realization that you brought something into his life that no one else could. He'll remember the way you listened when he spoke about his dreams, the way you celebrated his victories, and the way you stood by him during the tough times. That's not something easily forgotten. And when he feels that pull, that undeniable longing, he'll know that it's because you touch a part of him that goes beyond surface attraction. The truth is, emotional connection is rare. It's not something that happens every day. And when it does, it's worth cherishing. So if you've created that bond, if you've been genuine, supportive, and real, know that it won't go unnoticed. And when the time comes, when the realization hits, it won't just be a passing thought. It'll be a recognition of the value you brought into his life. And that's when he'll miss you in a way that truly matters. Psychology and lifestyle play a huge role in how and when a man begins to miss someone. It's not just about how much he cared or the depth of the connection. It's about what's going on in his mind and life at the time. We sometimes forget that people process emotions differently depending on their personal experiences, personality traits, and even what's happening in their day-to-day routines. Take a man who's always busy, for instance. If he's juggling work deadlines, gym sessions, social events, and a side hustle, there might not be much room left for introspection. He's in go mood, focused on tasks and achievements. And when someone is in that state, emotional awareness tends to take a back seat. It's not that he doesn't care or that he won't miss you. It's that he hasn't had the mental space to even realize it yet. But the moment life slows down, when the meetings are over and the adrenaline fades, that's when the emptiness creeps in. And that's when missing you becomes unavoidable. Then there's the matter of emotional maturity. Some men, because of their upbringing or life experiences, have learned to avoid vulnerability. They've been taught to tough it out, to suppress feelings instead of acknowledging them. That conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. So even when they start to feel that ache of missing someone, they might not immediately recognize it for what it is. Instead, they'll bury themselves in distractions, work, hobbies, or even new relationships, trying to avoid facing the truth. But here's the thing. You can only run from emotions for so long. Sooner or later, those feelings catch up with you. It might be during a quiet drive home, staring at the ceiling at night, or sitting in a cafe where memories resurface. Suddenly it hits them like a wave. I miss her. And it's not because they weren't strong enough to resist it. It's because that's how the human heart works. It demands to be felt. Personality also plays a big role in how men experience longing. Some men are naturally more introspective and in touch with their emotions. They might miss you sooner because they're already used to processing their feelings. Others are more pragmatic, focusing on solutions rather than emotions. For them, it might take a significant trigger to make them realize what they're feeling. Neither approach is right or wrong, it's just different. Lifestyle choices can also influence this timeline. A man who's surrounded by supportive friends and family may have an outlet to talk about his feelings and process them faster. On the other hand, someone who's more isolated may take longer to reach that point of emotional clarity because he's carrying it all on his own. And let's not forget the impact of social media. In today's world, it's easy to feel like someone is still around because you can see their posts or stories. That illusion can delay the realization of their absence. But here's what it all comes down to. When someone truly matters to you, lifestyle and psychology can only hold back those feelings for so long. Life might be chaotic, distractions might be plentiful, and emotional walls might be high, but none of that can erase a genuine connection. Eventually, the mind catches up with the heart. What I want to emphasize here is that it's not about waiting for someone to miss you on your schedule. It's about understanding that people process emotions differently and giving space for that process to unfold naturally. You can't force someone to realize your value or rush their feelings. All you can do is live authentically, be unforgettable, and trust that if you made a meaningful impact, they'll come to that realization in their own time. And when they do, it won't be a passing thought. It'll be a deep awareness that they've been carrying with them even when they didn't recognize it. And that moment, when psychology and lifestyle finally step aside to make room for genuine emotion, that's when it becomes clear. Missing someone isn't just about absence. It's about realizing the irreplaceable role they played in your life. And when that moment comes, it speaks louder than words ever could. Space is one of the most powerful tools in any relationship. It might sound counterintuitive, but sometimes stepping back is what allows true feelings to surface. You see, when you're always present, always available, it becomes easy for someone to take that presence for granted. It's not out of malice, it's just human nature. People tend to appreciate what they have more when it's no longer right in front of them. That's why absence can be so powerful. It creates room for reflection, for longing, and ultimately for a deeper appreciation. Men in particular often need that space to fully process their emotions. Society conditions many men to think that vulnerability is weakness and that introspection is unnecessary. So instead of sitting with their feelings, they stay busy. They focus on tasks, responsibilities, or even distractions to avoid confronting what's happening in their hearts. But when you step away and create distance, they're left with only their thoughts. Suddenly, the silence becomes loud and the emptiness becomes undeniable. It's during that space that a man starts to realize what he's missing. At first, it might be subtle, a passing thought or a fleeting memory. But as the days go by, those moments build. He starts thinking about your laugh, the way you listened when he needed to vent, the comfort of your presence. And that's when the truth hits. You were never just a part of his day, you were a part of his peace. The key here is that space isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate someone's emotions. It's about respecting both yourself and the other person enough to allow genuine feelings to develop naturally. Sometimes we think that constantly being present will make someone value us more, but in reality, it can have the opposite effect. When there's no room to miss you, there's no opportunity to fully appreciate what you bring into someone's life. Now, I'm not saying that space is a magic formula that guarantees someone will miss you, but if there was a real connection, space amplifies it. It highlights what was good and meaningful. And if someone doesn't miss you during that time, then maybe that connection wasn't as strong as you thought. And that's a lesson in itself. What's even more important is how you use that space for yourself. It's not just about waiting around to see if someone misses you. It's about living your life fully, growing, and becoming the best version of yourself. When you step back from someone, you create room to reconnect with your own passions, goals, and happiness. And there's nothing more attractive than a person who is confident and fulfilled on their own. Ironically, it's often when you're focused on yourself, thriving in your own space, that a man starts to realize just how much he misses you. There's a saying that energy speaks louder than words. When you exude confidence, joy, and independence, that energy is felt, even from a distance. And that's what makes someone stop and think, wait, I need that person back in my life. Giving space also shows maturity. It demonstrates that you're not dependent on constant reassurance or attention to feel secure. That level of self-respect sets the tone for healthier, more balanced relationships. When someone sees that you're not afraid to step back and live your own life, it commands respect. It sends the message that your time and presence are valuable and that they shouldn't be taken lightly. But here's the beautiful part. When someone does come back after that space, it's not out of obligation. It's because they genuinely missed you, because they realized that life without you wasn't quite as full or joyful. And that kind of return carries weight. It's authentic, meaningful, and lasting. So don't be afraid to step back. Don't be afraid to let space do its work. Because if the connection is real, that absence will only make it stronger. And when someone returns, it's because they've come to a powerful realization. You were never just an option. You were always. The truth is, people are wired to value what they work for. When something comes easily or is always within reach, it doesn't hold the same weight. But when effort is required, when there are challenges or stakes involved, that's when things take on real meaning. This applies to everything in life, including relationships. If a man never has to face the possibility of losing you, if everything is always handed to him without effort, there's a risk that he may never fully appreciate what he has. Now, it doesn't mean you should play hard to get or create unnecessary drama. No, that's not what I'm talking about. It's about understanding the natural balance between availability and value. Think about it. The things we work hardest for are the things we cherish most. Whether it's a career milestone, a personal goal, or even earning someone's trust and love, that effort creates a sense of investment, and with investment comes appreciation. For a man to truly miss you, he needs to feel that your presence was not a given, it was a privilege. When someone knows that your time, energy, and love are valuable, they treat those things with care. But when they're handed everything without any effort, it becomes easy to take it all for granted. That's human nature. When you create an environment where a man has to show up, put in the effort, and earn your presence in his life, it changes the dynamic. He becomes more engaged, more intentional, and ultimately more appreciative. And when life pulls you apart, even for a short time, that investment kicks in. He's not just thinking about what he's missing. He's remembering all the effort he put into building that connection. And trust me, that makes it harder to let go. Effort doesn't have to be grand gestures or dramatic declarations of love. It's about the little things, the meaningful conversations, the thoughtful acts, and the way someone shows up consistently over time. When those moments require genuine effort, they build a foundation that's hard to forget. And when you're no longer there, it becomes impossible not to miss that presence. But here's an important point. Effort is a two-way street. Just as you want someone to work for your attention and love, you have to be willing to do the same. Relationships thrive when both people are invested, when there's mutual respect, and when both parties show up and put in the work. That kind of partnership creates a bond that isn't easily broken. And when life inevitably creates distance, whether physical or emotional, that investment becomes a tether that pulls you back together. I know there's a lot of talk these days about proving your worth and making people chase you, but that's not what I'm saying. Love and connection aren't about power plays or manipulation. They're about genuine effort and intentionality. When a man values you, when he's truly invested, he won't see effort as a chore. He'll see it as a privilege, as something that strengthens your bond and makes him appreciate you even more. And when life throws challenges your ways, when distance, misunderstandings, or just the busyness of life creates separation, that investment pays off. He'll remember what it took to build that connection, and he'll realize that it's worth holding on to. That's when missing you becomes inevitable, because it's not just about your presence. It's about everything he worked for to have you in his life. The thing about effort is that it breeds loyalty. When someone has invested time, energy, and heart into building something with you, they're far less likely to walk away. And if they do step back for a while, that pull to return becomes stronger, because they know the value of what they had. They know the effort it took, and they won't want that investment to go to waste. So never underestimate the power of effort. It creates meaning, builds value, and lays the groundwork for a connection that stands the test of time. And when someone misses you because they've truly invested in you, that longing isn't fleeting. It's rooted in something real, something earned. And that kind of connection is hard to forget.